Woke. That's a word we hear a lot today. In the last few years, the word woke has been used in a couple different contexts. It originally was used by social justice advocates, but more recently, it's been frequently used by social conservatives. I was confused by the word, and I think many people are, so I did an online search to understand what being woke meant. And I saw that the word woke emerged in around 2015. And for 5 or 6 years, it was exclusively used in social justice contexts. And what it meant in that context was to be awakened to the needs of some other group, someone different from yourself, to become aware that someone had a concern or an issue or had some experience of marginalization. To be woke was to be aware. But then in 2022, social conservatives began to use the word, and ostensibly they used the word in a way that suggests that to be woke is to be narrow-minded, to be self-centered, to not think through an issue fully. Very interesting. But today I want to talk about woke, being woke, and what that means within the context of spirituality. And as I do that, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel as well as to click the bell so you're notified of future videos. As we look broadly at the wide traditions throughout the world, we see that to be woke, to be awake, to be aware is a fundamental value across the great traditions of the world. Starting in the East, one of the things that Buddhism and Hinduism have in common is the idea of enlightenment. And in both cases, to be enlightened means to wake up, to be aware. And to be aware and wake up to what? To be aware of the interconnection of everything around us, to be aware that all life is interconnected. And the Dalai Lama talks about this in some very specific ways. He talks about it in Tibetan Buddhism in terms of compassion, that we learn to be compassionate towards ourselves, that that's the core of compassion, but that it doesn't stay there, that authentic compassion grows to the world, to those around us, and ultimately to all people and all sentient beings. So that there's this sense that to be enlightened, to be woke, is to live with compassion for everything that exists. This same idea is contained within Taoism. Taoism, well, the easiest way I think to explain Taoism, because most people aren't familiar with it, is the Force from Star Wars, that there's this energy that binds everything together, and that's at the heart of Taoism. This energy is called qi, and it's often pictured as a river running through everything, that it flows, that this energy flows through us, it flows through everything that exists. And that from a Taoist perspective, when we are enlightened, when we wake up, we understand this flow of energy that connects us with everything that exists. And it's not just things that we in the West would consider are alive, like plants and animals, but it includes things like rocks and the ground, and everything that exists has this energy. Moving into the Western traditions, within Judaism, there's a fundamental ethical perspective called tikkun olam. And that term means to repair the world, to heal the world. And that fundamental perspective of morality in Judaism is that we are to actively work to heal what's broken in the world, to repair it, to be a repairer of the breach, the things that have fallen apart. And in doing so, it looks at how both people and structures in society have fallen apart and need to be repaired. And that's the responsibility of each Jew from a moral framework, to work and live in a way that is to be a repairer of what was broken. A similar concept is found within Christianity. You know, Jesus was very clear that the new commandment that he was giving was that his followers love one another and that others would know that they are his followers by their love for one another. Jesus said that on the night of the Last Supper, and that's the key message of the teaching of Jesus. Throughout the stories of Jesus, he often told stories comparing being awake and being asleep. And to be awake was to be ready to experience love and God's goodness and grace in the world. He talks about that in various stories that he told. Again, that concept of being awake to a greater reality and to the interconnection that we have with others. And of course, we also see that in indigenous traditions. Now, indigenous traditions are wide and varied, but one of the things that most indigenous traditions share among them is this idea that we are from the earth and everything in the earth is interconnected. And we know from science that this is literally true, that we are all made of carbon, that everything we know is made of carbon, that we are stardust. We are the stuff of the stars, and the stuff of the stars is the same thing as us. But the Lakota people, the people of the plains of North America, had a specific phrase for this, and they talk about all my relations. And from that perspective, they understand that not only are all people related, but all things are related, so that all my relations include the sun and the moon and the cold and the heat and the wind and the earth. Everything is related. So what's interesting to me is that as we look across the great traditions of the world, the great spiritual traditions of the world, we see consistently that this idea is present about being awake and aware, being compassionate, being caring, being engaged. It's a fundamental principle in spirituality. So in modern language, it's to be woke. Being woke is really about the grounding of our spirituality. It's about putting our spirituality in practice. And from that perspective, to be woke is a really good thing. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video, share it with others, make some comments, and know that I appreciate your time on Spirituality Beyond Borders. Thank you.